Hi there, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Mike, and I'm excited to share another Divi tutorial with you. Although today is not quite a Divi tutorial, but it does cover a great feature of Divi, if I can put it like that. How many of you have always got headaches with regards to responsiveness? You know, when you have a title, you've designed it beautifully on your text on your desktop, and then you go view it on different sizes, and you get stuff like this. Right? Where that title just takes over everywhere and it just becomes terrible. Now this could be applied on all things, not just on the title, but let's say if this was also a certain size, it wouldn't look so great. So thankfully, people were smart. They came out in CSS, they came out with this thing called responsiveness. And so Divi obviously has the features to create a responsiveness. So we have it here again. And this one is now worked with responsiveness, covering a tutorial that I did on how to make Divi responsive websites, which I'll link to in the top corner here if you want to go and see that. But we got this thing where it's quite cool. It goes, and then it jumps to the next one and it becomes smaller. See there? And then it stays at that size until it gets to a certain, and then there it becomes smaller again, right? So it's a very rigid change, like walking down steps. Right? So the first one is just like, that's how it is. This one, it goes down in steps from the big size, down one size as you go along. But today I want to talk about a different thing that it's a CSS feature, I suppose. I don't know how we call it, but it's part of CSS. And Divi now actually allows for this to be used in Divi 5. So let me show you what this is all about. It's a thing called clamp. Right? I don't know if you've seen on all the Divi materials lately, but they've been pushing this quite big. So what does clamp actually do? So let's have a look again at our title. And so at the beginning, it's going to look pretty much the same as all the others. And as we get smaller, it's also going to jump. After a while, it jumps to the top there, but you can see it's still maintaining the size. But now keep an eye on the font itself as I go smaller here. See what's happening? It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller as we go along. So I like to equate this like as the responsive one where we use media queries over here. It's like going down a flight of stairs. You go down one step at a time, but there's a drastic drop in elevation each time you go down a step. This one is more like going down an escalator where you just smoothly go down the escalator like that. And the font will just gets smaller and smaller as it goes along in a very smooth way. So it becomes a lot more fluid compared to how it would with the media queries. So what can we do with this? Well, this is what we call, as I said, we call it clamp. I'm going to jump in over here, take that out there, and edit this here quickly so we can just get something. So what is clamp? Well, clamp is, if I just take this one here, you can probably just keep an eye there as I type this out. Clamp works like this. So it's clamp, if I can spell correctly, clamp, and then it'll be a set of brackets or parentheses, however you want to call it. Now inside these parentheses, we're going to give it 3 values. Now it's going to start off with a minimum, right? And then it's going to end off with a, what's the opposite of minimum? Yep, you guessed it, maximum. Maximum. Right, so it's got that minimum and maximum. But now in between, we're going to have something called a preferred. And then that's pretty much how it works. It's clamp. You're given your minimum value, the smallest amount you want it to be. Then you give it a maximum value that you want it to be. And then in the middle, you give it a preferred. All right, so what could this look like? Let's use that example that I was using at the top there. So the minimum value, I want it to be a minimum of 32 pixels. That means that the title, this title over here, must not be any smaller than 32 pixels. All right. Then we get to the maximum. The maximum's on the biggest device that I can see it on. I want it to be a maximum of 72 pixels. So that's my range that I wanted to work within. A minimum of 32 and a maximum of 72. Now we get the preferred. So preferred now is where the fluidity comes in. So we cannot come and say, okay, we want this one to be a 52 px, because that's not going to allow for any fluid movement. It's just going to almost work the same as a media query, because you're going to go from 72 to 52 to 32. It's just not going to work. So instead, what we can do is we can start using values like a viewer width, right? So if I say like 5 VW, then this is going to take up 5% of the full viewer width. So each of the font size here, these letters, is going to be 5% of the full viewer width. And that, as I scroll down, it's going to get smaller and smaller, because it always maintains the 5% of the viewer width. It's no longer 5 pixels, but 5%. And so because of that, you're going to get that fluid movement like what we see here, where it keeps going smaller, smaller, smaller as the screen gets smaller. But there's no hard change. The only hard change you get here is because the 2 column becomes a single column, right? That's the only change that you can see, but the font wise, it's not changing. There's no drastic jump. And that is the difference between using clamp versus using responsive media queries. So it's very important to understand this viewer width over here. If you're not familiar with it, I would say is go and have a look at it. Just type in CSS VW, VH, and VI. And then you can see many, many, many tutorials on that. If you feel like you would like to see a tutorial here and not go read other tutorials, let me know. I'm happy to make a tutorial on these kind of things, but this is very CSS heavy. It's not to say that it's a specific for Divi, all right? But this is how you can make use of the clamp function. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, the simple thing is because this can now be used in Divi 5. So how can we use this in Divi 5? Well, let's have a look. Let's take this as it is over here. And let's go to the design. And we go to, what is this? Heading 2. Go to heading 2. And we go down to the heading text size over here. All right. Over here, I want to click on the measuring unit. And I want to go down and I want to click on clamp. And as soon as I click on clamp, you can see it gives me 3 values. So I want to make sure that my first one is 32. Just following the example we have here. My largest is 72. And then my center preferred one, I want to make 5 VW. Okay, and then there it is. So you can see it's more or less the same size as that one. Why? Because it is 72. That's our starting one. So let's save this. And then let's exit it. And I'm not sure if we can, but let's see if we can get both at the same time and we can compare them. Okay, now keep in mind, they're both starting at 72, and they're both ending at 32, right? The only difference between this one and this one is 5 viewer width, and this one is 7 viewer width. So there might be a slight difference in size. Let's have a look. You can see there it's already smaller. Can you see? Because this one is 5%, while this one is 7%. And we jump down. Oh, now the image is in the way, so we can't see. But that's how it works. It's quite simple, really, when you see it in practice. And the more you play with it, the better and better you'll get at it. And so I encourage you to go and just to try it out on many of your different fonts that you have. Now, the interesting thing is, this is not restricted to fonts, right? You can also change images. Same thing. All works the same way. It might be a little difficult for me to explain it to you now because I'm not sure of the actual sizing of these. But if we go and we say sizing and we say width, we can also change it to clamp. And then you put in your different sizes. When you put in sizes here, it'll then also go and smoothly get smaller or bigger depending on your screen size. The same can be done for padding. The same can be done for spacing, for margins. And so the best that I can offer you here is really just to go and give it a go. Play with it with every element that you have. Now that you understand how it works, just use it, and use it in everything that you can, because the more you can use it, the better. Now, there's one more thing that I also want to just explain to you. Over here, we put in for H1, we put in the text size, right? So I've changed it to this one because I wanted to show you how it worked, but we can make this clamp, all right? So we make this 32, we make that 72, and then this one we change to 7VW. Okay, so we have that in there. But now, what if I have H1s all throughout my website? And I don't exactly want to now have to go through the entire website and put in these settings every time. Well, that's where our global variables come into play. So we've got our variable manager here, and we've got fonts over here, and then we've got numbers at the top. So the numbers at the top here, you can also put in clamp. So let's say if we want to put in H heading 1 text, and we go and we put it in our clamp. So we say 32 7VW and 72. Okay, save variables and apply changes. Okay, so if we close that now and we come here, we've got here, and we can just select heading 1 text. I'm still amazed at how fast this Divi 5 is. A change I just made in the top left here is already reflected here. There's no need for a refresh of a page. There's no, it's just there. It's so good. Right, so if I click on that, it then puts that in there. So that means that now every H1 that I go and I set this way, that if I come back at a later time and I say, oh, actually, I think I would prefer if the 7VW is 5. I only need to come back to this one place here, and I come and I change that to a 5VW, save variables, apply changes, and it's boom, it's done across the entire site. I don't need to go into each and every element. You can even see there it's changed. Right there, it's got 5VW already. So I don't need to go into every little H1 that I have all spread across the website. I can just come here and it's done. One quick change. And so that is how you can use clamp now in your Divi 5 website. For me, this is a bit of a game changer, and it really will speed things up as you go along. I can't say for certain, but in my view, the way I think about it is the more that you start to use it, using these kind of functions, but also putting it in your variable manager there, this should also speed up your website itself, because it should be loading less code because it's just calling from the variable each time. So that's also something to consider when you're building across. So some of the things why I say that clamp is really the way to go. One, it provides you simplicity because you're going to have fewer media queries to write and to maintain. It's going to be true fluidity. You know, elements scale smoothly. Remember, like I was saying, you can have an escalator rather than a staircase. Right? You're going to have a better user experience because it's going to be consistent and readable layouts across your entire device. Because if you're using the variable manager there, then every time that you make any changes anyway, it's going to be consistent across the site. And then, as I said earlier, it's also going to be efficient because it's going to help you develop faster. And then obviously it's going to be easier to maintain as you go along. All right. So there you have it. That's the CSS clamp explained and demonstrated in Divi 5. I hope this helps you build even more robust and responsive websites. If you found this video helpful, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more web design and Divi tutorials. Let me know in the comments how you plan to use clamp in your next project. I look forward to seeing them all. All right, I hope to see you in the next video.